Things are recording. Things are doing good. All right. Record breakers.
You started it.
3, 2, 1. Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, the coolest music podcast recorded in this room. I'm Petey Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me is, of course, my crew that shares music with each other on a weekly basis, for the most part. We have Brett.
Face down, ass up. That's the way I like the podcast.
Yeah. We've got Drew.
Don't let this podcast distract you from the fact that the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead in the 2016 NBA Finals.
And we've got Patrick.
Hello.
Yes. We talk about music. Of course, we are here to share music with each other, and the person sharing music this week is none other than the aforementioned Patrick. Pat, what do you got for us this week?
So, about 15, 17 years ago, there was this thing called the new wave of American heavy metal, kind of late 90s, early 2000s. And one of my favorite bands from that era is a band called Shadows Fall. And this album, it's their fourth album, The War Within.
Yes, The War Within. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I could find some assumptions in the name. A band named Shadows Fall. That's either a game from Konami or a heavy metal act from post 1995. But no, I had no clue. These are waters I don't wade in very often.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I have a lot of friends that listen to a lot of different types of metal. And I know the ones that usually enjoyed, or I saw had Shadows Fall as one of their bands that they liked a lot, and I sort of knew what they were into, so I was expecting probably a lot of heavy guitar riffs and some in-your-face yelling vocals, but that's about what I was expecting at this point. We'll go into whether I got that or not in the next block. Hint.
I kind of had some. I kind of knew what we were getting into because by some fluke of CD delivery services that send you a bunch of different CDs and different albums, I have the follow-up to this album called Threads of Life, and I've listened to it a few times, so I'm familiar with the sound. And I kind of knew what we were getting into, and I was definitely curious to see what the other guys would react to. But yeah, Patrick, how would you go ahead and describe this album musically?
So, Shadows Fall, new wave of American heavy metal's big, wide world. If you were, me in the the mid 2000s, who wanted something louder and heavier, Shadows Fall sort of is. They started out sort of more of a metalcore band, and then got a little bit like Swedish death metal. But really, this album kind of ends up being a little bit death metal, a little bit metalcore, and a lot of kids who grew up listening to thrash. Shadow, you get a dual guitar attack as many great metal bands do. So you get dueling solos, harmonized stuff, and chuggities. A really good drums. Jason Bittner is not the fanciest drummer from this sort of era, but he is one of the tightest and really I think he goes to the Dave Lombardo School of Drumming. Don't do anything you don't need to, but don't be afraid to, run on the kicks a little bit when you need to. And I thought, so this is this whole area of music was really important to me for a while. And I know everyone in the group doesn't really love screaming vocals, but I figured Brian Fair is less screamy than some. He's not like the full on, mush mouth death metal thing. He kind of, again, it airs almost onto the side of metalcore, and there's some singing in there occasionally. I figured it'd be fun. Plus, I've been listening to this album for 13 years now, and I still kind of enjoy it.
And the man on vocals has impressive set of dreads.
Yeah, he has dreads that he's been growing since he was 16, and he's well into his 40s.
Yeah, it's something else, to say the least. Brett, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes, elements that caught your attention?
Themes, elements. There's a guy who can stomp both of his feet in an alternating fashion really fast. There's a guy playing sweeps and pitch harmonics. It's a modern metal act, but it's sort of a subgenre hopping one. The vocals aren't completely sung from 3 inches behind the lips, although there is some uvula abuse from time to time. There's also clean vocals. Gotta call that out. There's some really technical bass that's going on behind the mix. You can't always pull it out, but if you listen hard enough, you'll find some really cool things going on. But when you've got a bunch of palm muted mud, it's kind of hard to pick the bass out of sometimes. These guys, they know what they're doing. This album did chart in the U.S. and Japan, and the band was later. I don't know if it was one of those albums that you got from your Columbia dollar CD delivery, but they were nominated twice for Grammys, so they aren't exactly slouches. But this is definitely a modern metal act with all of the modern metal tropes, but it does harken back to a lot of things. Like you said, there's harmonizing two-part guitars. There's some stuff when we break down song to song. There's a few great hits that you see coming back that I can't wait to talk about.
Yeah. Drew, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
We've had... I have to call shenanigans, for one, before I go into my thoughts. We've had the phrase impressive dreads and great hits so far, and I have grievances with both of those phrases.
I'm not
I
saying
think the
they
dreads
look pretty,
are at bare minimum
impressive.
impressive in their commitment.
They probably have a smell about them that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, your laziness is not impressive. Fuck you. God damn it. I hate... Okay, that aside. God, stop showing it.
The audio listener is missing out on some great graphics.
Just Google Brian Fair from Shadows Fall. You'll see what we mean.
Also, apparently, he is also a Celtics fan, so fuck that guy.
He's from Boston. What do you want him to be?
A better human being.
What, a Golden State Warriors fan? One of those bandwagoners?
Next on Basketball Breakers.
B-ball breakers.
Hey, guys, I might like the Cavaliers. Wonder why I hate the Celtics handle. Okay, so Shadows Fall. Let's get back into what we're actually talking about. A metal band. A band that I tended to stay away from, mostly because the album art plus the fan base, I sort of understood that, like, maybe this isn't the band for me. Maybe I wasn't going to be super into it. And I got into it. It is an in-your-face metal record. There is some of that screaming, yell-type singing that, at one point, hey, I'm not going to say I didn't listen to it. I'm not going to say that Evergreen Terrace and Hatebreed and such weren't in a regular rotation for me, but, like, that was when I was trying to be a cool guy.
I don't understand how you could have used to listen to Hatebreed and you don't like screamed vocals, because they're garbage.
I don't know.
Scream vocals? Yeah, they are garbage.
but they're not. The garbage vocals are actually better. I prefer her. But like there is bits of gold in this. The guitars do some really neat stuff here and there. And it's a headbanging ass album. I feel bad because like metal is a genre that like it deserves more dissection, and I'm really bad at it. If we go for deep musical dissection of metal from a record breaker, you're probably not looking in Drew's direction. When I go at like fist pumping, screaming music, I'm usually looking either at the Minor Threats or the Comeback Kids of the world. For that sort of stuff. So it's really hard for me to do, but there is parts of this album that sort of make me think of what I listened to when I was younger in a weird way. There are parts of this album that remind me of a lot of what, like, I still, like, if I sat down and tried, I could probably still remember the bass lick from Scream of a Butterfly from Acid Bath. And, like, there are parts of this record that remind, like, when they slow down, remind me of that, which was really weird. Like, there's some good riffing in this album. There's some good musicianship. I wish the vocals went clean more often, because I think when they went clean, I actually liked this a lot better. Just because I didn't... Though, like, this sort of scream, yell, singing, like, I just can't vibe with anymore, and I wish I would, I guess, but
yeah, it's one of those things that's a very specific sound. I don't mind it as much, and I kind of enjoy just kind of having it be in the background. Like I said, I've had bands like I brought Pantera into the mix, which is kind of a classic example of that. But this is a good example of that. I think it works well, even if it is wheelhouse metal in many ways, but it does a lot of really cool, fun things and has some fun tracks that can make you bop your head or even just bang your head. Good head banging tunes. I think that works. It's in its favor. But yeah, Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So do the record breakers thing. Start with the opener, The Light That Blinds. I think, like, if you were going to pick a couple of songs that really represent this era of metal music, this one would be on the short list. And it also really encompasses what Shadows Fall do. You get sort of, they had these, and more so on the previous record, they had like these sort of classical guitars, sort of clean interludes, and then, it breaking into the heavy shit. Like I said, I really like Brian Fair's vocals. I think as screamers go, like, he's a lot clearer than a lot of other people. Like you can one pass through the lyric sheet, you know what he's talking about, which, is a thing you do when you're 18 years old in college and getting into metal music. And just like fun guitar solos. It's like, guitar heavy music's a fun thing. And I am a sucker for twin guitar solos. That's why I love Iron Maiden. Like, that whole idea is not used nearly enough. What drives the week? This is, I think, a really good example of, like, Jason Bittner, their drummer, why I like him. The big difference between what 80s metal drumming was and then what kind of came by this time is everybody figured out that kicks following, like, the rhythm of the guitar or the bass kind of sounded really cool. It was sort of, Meshuggah was the first band I know of that really, really did it well. And that was
effect as well.
Fear Factory did it sometimes. Yeah. And it's like, it was the difference between simply running on the kicks and playing, 16 through 30-second notes versus following the actual rhythm of the guitars and bass. Like I said, Bittner is not the fanciest drummer from this era. There's, guys who are way, way, way more technical, but he also, like, he just got out of the way and played good stuff. And that's a really fun song. And then The Power of I and I. It's got the heaviest fucking intro and crazy ass guitar solos. And it's a song that I still enjoy listening to now and again. Like I bought this when it was new, and that was, almost half my life ago.
A good while ago. A definitely different era ago. And it definitely harkens back to that era. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Hark. I'm gonna harken back to
Did
my
the
last
Herald
episode.
Angels sing?
That's correct. Glory to the light that blinds. So get this, guys. You
Song
open
about
up your
flashbang.
metal. You open up your heavy metal album and you start out with some super reverbed acoustic-y intro, and then all of a sudden you get like this, like, what is it? Is it like a reverse cymbal? Yeah, it's a reverse cymbal effect. Yeah, and then yeah, that's like the Wilhelm scream of heavy metal. Like, the we've got to be like, we got to go from this to this, and we got to make anybody who's got a CD player in their car have to turn it down really fast once the drums kick. But it's after about 30 seconds, you get what you came for. It checked all the boxes on the heavy metal to-do list. The two part guitar harmonies. They're keeping it alive. Another track, what drives the week. There's some very super familiar sounds on this track, especially in the part where they went all proggy. There's some nifty bass line going under the chorused out clean guitar. Even the way that the guitar resolves on its lick before the chorus, it made me smile in a weird way. I was trying to pull out all the things that I like. Oh, that's noteworthy. I'm gonna actually make a note of this. Surprising how that works. And those who cannot speak, I don't believe I'm one of those. But yeah, those reverb out acoustic guitars are back and better than ever because there's a cello underneath it. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's right. Nothing brings more fake. Yeah, you put a cello under anything, it's gonna be great. But kind of not. It has that like very Castlevania feel with some of the guitar licks. And then they changed to be kind of like sort of Megadeth-y kind of licks from the early 90s. And then sometimes they sound like level music from a Mega Man X game. Like I really don't know. Like it goes some places. And on that track, you definitely know that hey, they've got a drummer because they give the they put it on display. And the song shifts pace around a whole lot. Just as much as the rest of the band shifts things up. The drums go some places on that track and on this album. The drums do their thing. Even though I like to crap all over everything that I don't enjoy. There's some skill underneath here. These guys ain't slouches.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks to you?
Well, for me, again, Record Breakers thing, the blinds. This will be another one doing this. Remember when I said I was reminded of an Acid Bath song? It was the opening to the entire damn record. And I was like, oh, this is going someplace different than my expectations were. It very quickly changes, and it ends up being a very in-your-face opening track. But something about that, Brett may have made fun of it, but something about that style of opening a riff to a song, I'm a sucker for it. I'll admit that. Look, I liked it when
Metallica
Texas
did it and did it better.
It's been done before. It's been done a million times, but I'm still a sucker for it. It could be metal. It could be emo. It could be grunge. Made an entire genre out of that move, essentially. But you know what? It's all right sometimes. Stillness. Something about this song was wait a second. I've never heard this band before, but something about this opening riff is familiar. I think Oakley Dokley ripped it off for White Rhine Spritzer for the bridge. I'm pretty sure that happened, and I'm kind of okay with it. Because that opening riff is sort of cool. it doesn't like stick around the whole song. It doesn't like carry on through the song, but like the song overall, I can dig. But by far, probably my favorite part of the entire record is "Ghost of Past Failures." Specifically the chorus. There is something that Iron Maiden was mentioned, and I'm not going to say that this band touches Iron Maiden, but there is something about that chorus that is super fucking Iron Maiden inspired. Like, that is like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, like, we're going to have multi-layered vocals that are like fist pumpy, like, feel good metal music, and like, that's awesome. And then, like, the solo in this song was some shredding ass shredding that was done real well. If any like song stuck with me throughout this entire record, "Ghost of Past Failures" 100% gets my vote for that one, without a doubt.
Yeah. Fun fact: What Drives the Week received a Grammy Award nomination for Best Metal Performance in 2006. However, the award went to Slipknot for the song "Before I Forget." Remember that, so you can get a little context for the era, which is fun. But yeah, let's bring it back around the horn for some conclusive thoughts. Brett, how would you conclude your thoughts on this album?
This album is middling and forgettable. To me, if you want what it offers, by all means, go for it. If you're into this kind of stuff, I'm not going to judge you too much. There's plenty of it out there. This is not the worst example that you can grab. This is probably right up the alley, but it's such a strange like mix of subgenres. I don't know who I would say, hey, give this a listen to, unless they were already in the waist deep in these waters, and they probably already knew. Personally, I didn't get too much out of the listen, but this isn't the kind. I mean, you don't come to me for your top 10 list of this. Yes. Yeah. If there's a different wave of a different kind of heavy metal, I might be able to help you a little bit. But at the time that this music was modern, I was as far away from it. I didn't bathe myself in any kind of modern music at that time. I was too busy being a crotchety fucking asshole. So this might be music that's not good for crotchety old assholes. So listen to it. Obviously, you should have already played the home game, but this music is obviously somebody's jam, and it seems to have survived pretty well without my participation in the subgenre. So I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there that will enjoy this. So if you want to call me a dum-dum, probably am.
Yeah.
Mr. Gazoo, the Great.
We all gladly label ourselves dum-dums and never profess to be great authorities on anything. We're just here having fun, bro. But yeah, Drew, how would you conclude your thoughts on the album?
As I said, this is my days of the screaming music have sort of passed me by. So anything new that comes into my wheelhouse with that, like, has a lot to go past because I don't give it nostalgia points. To be honest, like, but this is, from a musician standpoint, solid. Like, this is for something that isn't my exact wheelhouse, isn't what I'm into, and would mostly be something I essentially stay away from most of the time. This actually, from a playing standpoint, from a compositional standpoint, is really solid. Like, and that's the weird thing, is separating the fact that I don't like it from the fact that this was an actually well put together record is not usually what I do mostly, but like, there was something about the actual music itself that made me have to do that, because it was, like I said, really well made. If you're into this type of metal, this is a really solid version of that type of metal.
Yeah, this is pretty standard. You would almost call it a basic bitch. but it does what it does well, and it is a cool listen. Even if it admittedly kind of blends together sometimes, or isn't necessarily something that for a lot of people would like stick with them, and they'd be diving deep and like having it seep into their brain and analyzing it. But it's good. It's well played. It's well made. It's cool. It has good energy to it. There's a great phrase that I've used a few times, probably on the show at least before. There's a Twitter account that I believe hasn't been active for like a couple of years, but it's called Discographies, that came up with that would sum up bands or artists' discographies in the span of a tweet. And for several bands, I can't look up the tweet to say which ones, they had come up with the phrase, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make a good set of tires. And I would say this is a good set of new American heavy metal tires. Yeah, and I would call it that. Patrick, how would you conclude your thoughts on this album?
I think it's a good example of the genre. It's probably not the greatest album of all time, and I'll even say it's not even my favorite metal record, but it's for me, it's a time capsule back to when I was really, really starting to get into metal. This album and its predecessor, The Art of Balance, they're really fun. So, if you weren't around for the new wave of American heavy metal, or if you missed it because you were listening to something else, it's a really good example of what was going on at that time. And if you think about what metal was just a few years before, it was a pretty different game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, now we get to our main event of the evening, our haiku reviews. Get to haiku reviews. Let's just get started. Brett, what is your haiku?
What do we have here? It's some of that metal stuff. Not my kind of stuff.
Drew, what is your haiku?
I'm gonna follow that up. That was actually really funny. Some shredding guitar and a lot of angry yells just isn't for me.
I'll have my haiku. Bog standard metal with plenty of energy and headbanging tunes. Patrick, what is your haiku?
An old favorite, soundtrack to my freshman year, gem of its era.
Those are our thoughts on Shadows Fall. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers a home game. You should have already done your homework. Looking at you. Do your homework. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record. And I believe that is Brett?
Yeah, it's not on there. Sorry, folks.
Not on there? No.
But we're going to have to go to the deep, dark world of YouTube to find this next album. And it's guaranteed to be worse than the one we just reviewed. But spoilers, sorry. It is by Hulk Hogan and the Wrestling Boot Band. The album is Hulk Rules.
Yes. Hulk does in fact rule.
You'll find Hulk Hogan, the videos. You'll see a guy with a dirty thumbnail bed and a really crappy photo of the jewel case of the CD, but there's a glare because the flash is going off. That's what you're looking for. But you can find it many places. Fidelity is not going to be really the prime thing you're looking for here. It's just find your way to consume it and do your homework, because this one's going to be a doozy. Yeah. There's hip hop.
Hippin' hoppin'. Yeah. This is, I guess, Christmas has come early. Because this is usually a Christmas episode album. But this is gonna be fun. But look forward to that next week.
You're fucking joking.
That's next week, and this is this week. I'm excited. This is gonna be fun. That's next week. This is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at HIBBARD, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at X24X. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebellion.net for this and other shows. This and the other show. I should say. This and the other one. Rebellion TV for on YouTube and other places. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, all over the place where you can find podcasts. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Doodly doodly doo, neighbor.